Instead, how to enjoy chocolate without the guilt. And don't forget tonight, the Friday Biz Blitz. All of that to come. But first, the very latest Eyewitness News.
Good evening, I'm Zingisa Chirwa. Commercial airliner Airlink has suspended some of its flights to and from 4 cities in the country due to bad weather conditions. Airlink says there are scheduled disruptions in Kruger Mpumalanga, Maritzburg, Richards Bay and Mthatha airports. The airliner has blamed the country's air traffic navigation services for failing to maintain the instrument flight procedures at the affected airports. Instrument flight procedures are pre-planned, published instructions for planes to ensure safe and efficient navigation, especially in low visibility conditions. Airlink spokesperson Dwayne Ferrerino.
Airlink is doing everything possible to get customers to their intended destinations as quickly as possible with the minimum inconvenience. Under normal circumstances, our flights to and from these destinations would be permitted to operate in the present summer weather. However, the suspension of the IFPs placed severe limitations on flights.
Transport Minister Barbara Creecy has called for a culpable homicide case to be opened against the bus company whose vehicle crashed, killing 43 people. The department released a preliminary report on the fatal accident today, revealing that negligence and unroadworthiness were key factors behind the crash. The bus, which was travelling from the Eastern Cape to Zimbabwe, veered off the N1 highway in Limpopo earlier this week. According to the department's initial findings, the bus company should be investigated for operating an unroadworthy vehicle. Alpha Ramushwana has more.
The RTMC's investigation found that the bus, which was designed to carry 62 passengers, was overloaded by an additional 23 people. It also revealed that half of the vehicle's braking systems were defective, while the trailer had no functional brakes at all. Transport Minister Barbara Creecy says the bus company must be investigated for allowing an unroadworthy vehicle on the road. She's also called for a culpable homicide charge to be considered against the company for endangering the passengers' lives. A full technical report is expected to be released within the next 21 weeks. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News.
Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has briefed President Cyril Ramaphosa about his decision to disband the political killings task team, and the president agreed. Mchunu made the point today despite earlier evidence from National Commissioner Fani Masemola that cast doubt that Ramaphosa agreed with the decision to disband the task team. Mchunu was answering questions for a second day before the Police Ad Hoc Committee investigating police corruption, where he continued defending his decision. Babalondenze reports.
In his evidence before the Madlanga Commission and the Ad Hoc Committee, National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola said President Cyril Ramaphosa did not support the decision to disband the task team. But Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says he held a brief meeting with President Ramaphosa where he briefed him about his decision.
The answer in the affidavit is that I briefed the President. He agreed with the briefing I gave him.
But ANC MP Xola Ngola says previous evidence differed with Mchunu's submission.
It is important for us to explain to the witness why the evidence leader is emphasizing agreement. It's solely because the main witness had casted doubt whether the president would have agreed for a dissolution of a political killings task team.
But Mchunu maintains that the president agreed with his directive and at no point did he object. Mchunu concluded his evidence today and will return to face questions from MPs on Tuesday. Babalondenza, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
And gang volatility in Overcome Heights in Muizenberg has hampered the work of Cape Town's Disaster Risk Management Centre. Officials have been trying to complete assessments following shack fires at 3 informal settlements yesterday. They found 10 informal structures were damaged, with sands displacing 32 people, while in Khayelitsha 52 wood and iron structures were affected, impacting 303 residents. However, Disaster Risk spokesperson Charlotte Powell says they encountered problems in gang-ravaged Overcome Heights.
The assessment in Overcome Heights, where a fire broke out late yesterday, has been hampered by gang-related volatility in the area. Our officials are liaising with community leaders in the interim to start collating a list of affected persons so that relief measures can be activated.
Gold is trading at $4,252.48 an ounce. The rand is 17.40 to the dollar, 23.32 to the pound, and 20.27 to the euro. Brent crude is $60.97 a barrel.
In your sport, rain delaying play in the World Cup clash between Sri Lanka and Proteas women. Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie writes to FIFA to apologise for Safa's yellow card blunder. And Cole Palmer ruled out of action for 6 weeks.
A cloudy Saturday is in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Johannesburg drops to an overnight low of 12 and peaking at 20. Pretoria 14 and 23. Vereeniging 14 and 18 degrees. Cape Town's cloudy, becoming partly cloudy with a gentle south-southeasterly breeze at a low of 15 and a high of 21. The top story on EWN this hour. Commercial airliner Airlink has suspended some of its flights to and from 4 cities in the country due to bad weather conditions.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
Heading into Pimville, Soweto, there's still bumper traffic. This is on Chris Hani Road between UJ Campus and Klipspruit Valley Road. There's also slow-moving traffic in Protea Glen. This is on the R559 opposite GOG Gardens. In Rudeport, heading towards Leratong, traffic is a bit sluggish. This is on Randfontein Road, approaching Adcock. We still have those roadworks in the Calvin Alex area, causing heavy delays traveling towards Germiston. That's the N3 southbound between the Baclew Interchange and London Road, while in the mother city, traffic heavily backed up on the elevated freeway heading into the Cape Town CBD. Also bumper traffic on the N1 outbound approaching Brackenfell. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025. Good evening. Welcome to the program. I'm Stephen Grootes, 7 minutes after 6, the Friday edition, of course, of The Money Show. As we go to air, you hear the story in EWN. Airlink, the airline, confirming it's had to suspend many of its flights to places like Mthatha, Richards Bay, Pietermaritzburg. All of this because of the suspension of instrument flight procedures. And this again takes us to the question we've heard many times, issues that seem to be affected by air traffic navigation systems, or services rather, air traffic navigation services. It is, of course, part of government, part of the Transport Department. We've had issues there over the last little while. We'll try and get some reaction to that and just a greater understanding, a deeper understanding of what's happened. You yourself may be affected, may have been affected as well by this. Would be good to hear from you on 011 883 0702 and 0214460567, and voice notes as well, of course, from you, and the impact it's had on you on 072 702 1702. One question I just can't get away from is that if there was going to be work done on this system, surely the airlines were told. And so if there's bad weather, they would know where they are. It's a very strange thing. One of those things that frankly should never have happened. It should really never have happened. I think we're going to be able to speak to Guy Leach on that in just a moment. Also to come, we'll talk about remuneration for directors. We'll talk about what's happening with the move from buying goods to experiences for those with wealth. Bronwyn Williams will talk about that. And we'll talk about chocolate. And don't forget the Friday Biz Blitz before the end of the program. Good evening.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
All right, Guy Leach agreeing to speak to us, the editor of SA Flyer magazine, and at very short notice. Guy, good evening. I do appreciate it. So we hear from Airlink that many of their flights have had to be disrupted or suspended. They say thousands of passengers affected by this because the instrument flight procedure systems have been suspended. What's actually going on?
Yeah, hi, Stephen. Nice to be with you and your listeners. Well, what's going on has, in fact, been going on for the past 18 or so months when 220 in-flight procedures were effectively cancelled by the Civil Aviation Authority. And, at times we can manage with this failure, at other times we can't. Right now, we, being the airline industry, are really struggling because the weather's gone bad. The thunderstorms brewing all over the place. And if you don't have an instrument flight procedure, you can't get into an airport when the weather's bad. And this has massive knock-on effects, including obviously creating enormous delays and creating delays for starting. So we've had stories of passengers sitting on the ground in aircraft, in airliners for an hour and a half, getting hotter and hotter and more fumed while the whole ATNS system creaks.
This is all because of ATNS. I mean, this problem was supposed to have been rectified. People were supposed to be working on it. And if I recall, there was a very long notice period that this might happen.
Absolutely. These procedures need to be reviewed every 5 years. So it's not as though it all of a sudden happened out of the blue. They could see the deadlines for these procedures coming down the line. That's why the current CEO is properly suspended. And I'm looking at their presentation they've just done to the Airlines Association conference, and it's quite funny. They're saying that the four of the absolutely key procedures to, for instance, the key airports will be approved on Christmas Day, the 25th. So, they're happening. There are a couple of others that have been approved on the 27th of this month. They're saying that 169 out of 181 procedures are now approved, but are pending approval actually by the CAA. So the problem is going to continue for a whole while. In fact, it's going to continue for most of the festive season.
So they're saying some of them will be approved by Christmas Day. I mean, that is the most intense traveling time around Christmas Day, obviously not on Christmas Day.
Well, who knows? I mean, I can't imagine the Civil Aviation Authority working on Christmas Day to approve these procedures, but perhaps that's just a deadline that they've set themselves. To be fair, the ATNS is trying hard to make up the backlog and get on top of it. But it is, the moment the weather turns bad, it is intensely frustrating. I was speaking to Airlink the other day, to Roger Foster, actually, who'd recently retired. He was talking hundreds of millions of rands that these delays have cost just Airlink, let alone all the other airlines.
We knew that this was a long time coming. You remind us that the CEO has been suspended. Are you confident that what needs to be done now is actually being done? I mean, I don't know how it could be done now if it couldn't be done before. Did more money come in or something?
Yeah, they've thrown money in people at the problem. They've managed to persuade a lot of the former employees who'd left in disgust because the atmosphere at ATNS had quite simply become toxic. And we lost controllers and flight procedure planners all over the world, particularly to the Middle East and New Zealand. They've put a whole lot of incentives in place to get a whole lot of those key staffers back. Obviously, I think that they've got people in charge who really have set out to create objectives and get them done by these objectives. So it looks like they've made a dent. They've got the number down from 227 down to, they say, 169 approved. So there are signs of improvement at least.
Guy Leach, really appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Guy Leach is the editor at SA Flyer magazine. Very frustrating if you're stuck on the tarmac. Very difficult if you can't fly at all. 13 minutes after 6.
7:02.
Stephen is on The Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
Well, confirmation this week, the amount of money directors are receiving starting to go up again, increasing by more than inflation. CEOs have seen their salaries go up by around 8%, but chief financial officers, well, theirs have gone up by around 19%. A few, perhaps, pockets of dissatisfaction from shareholders, though, an increase in the number of cases in which shareholders have voted against remuneration increases. Leila Ibrahimi is the reward partner at PwC. Leila, good evening. Firstly, what's driving up the salaries of CEOs and chief financial officers? I presume it's the good old-fashioned competition for talent.
Evening, Stephen, and thanks for having me. It's a complicated question, but the easy answer is it's actually being driven by long-term incentives in this case. So there's this sort of global competition for talent, which isn't necessarily directly impacting South Africa as much as, say, for example, the UK. But we do tend to follow British trends, interestingly, in our market. So what we're seeing in the UK is that competition with the US is driving up executive pay there, and the most significant impact is in the long-term incentives. And then we've seen, sort of trickling through to the South African market when we analyze the JSE data, that the CEO LTIs, and this is opportunity, has gone up by 40% in the most recent data, and more significantly for CFOs at 58%. So not necessarily bad news, because it means that executives are more focused on the long term. It obviously changes the pay mix. It means that if they want to unlock that, there are certain targets that need to be achieved. which, will result in shareholder value being driven. But yeah, that's where most of the increases are coming from.
Long-term incentives, do they actually work? And Leila, I realize that's a big question. On one level, they must do, because that's what everybody aims for nowadays.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to fully answer that question. But I think if a well-designed long-term incentive, I think, is a very valuable tool, because ultimately what you're trying to do is grow the pie for everyone. So you're trying to design something that will result in, value being created for shareholders, and only when there is value being created for shareholders, then there's value being paid out to the executive. So what we call good old pay for performance. So in South Africa, we still very much have an expectation of 100% pay for performance for executives. But interesting point on that, so what we've seen in the UK over the last couple of years is a move towards they call it a hybrid model, where they have more retention shares as well. So in other words, you just have to remain employed to get some of your long-term incentive opportunity, which is obviously more aligned again with the US approach. So linking back to my earlier point.
Going back to your report, the fees paid to board members went up by 12% on a median basis. That's way above inflation. What's pushing that up so strongly? Is it just the performance of the companies that they're on the boards of?
No, so interestingly, board members are not linked to performance of the companies at all, because, you sort of want to keep a bit of independence there. So that isn't being pushed by performance in that instance. So I think what it comes down to is the increasing responsibility that's placed on board members. So I can speak about REMCO or Remuneration Committee as a very good example of that. We have the Companies Act coming in with all the amendments. There's going to be a binding vote on the REM policy. There's going to be, serious sanctions for Remuneration Committee members if the implementation report, which is, what happened and how our executives were paid in the previous year, is failed 2 years in a row. So, with all of that, there's just a lot more time that needs to be spent in these board meetings, and board pay is usually, or board member pay is usually linked to the number of meetings that there are. So if you have increase in the number of meetings and the amount of time spent, well, obviously those fees get pushed up.
As SOE boards have discovered. You say that the number of companies that did not get more than 50% shareholder support for their implementation reports doubled. It's still only around 5%, but it did double. Are shareholders getting a little bit more assertive, or are boards getting a little bit more, difficult?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, because so that number that you quoted, the 2.6 or 5.4, is the number of companies receiving less than 50% for their implementation report. So we track that out of interest, because when the new regime comes in, which we anticipate will be in the next couple of months, the 50% mark is what they need to achieve in order to not face the sanctions. But at the moment, it's a non-binding vote, so the 75% mark is what they're aiming for at the moment. So what does it mean? I think, it means that there has been dissatisfaction with some of the decisions that have been made by boards as they relate to executive pay, because shareholders are not quick to vote against these, as you can imagine, because even now in the non-binding regime, the ramifications of a negative vote are high. So it really is reserved for instances where they are really, they've sort of signaled we're not happy with this approach. Sometimes they've indicated to the company in the policy vote, we're not happy with what you're saying you're going to do. Other instances is where something was done, and this is often where the implementation report votes come through. Something was done that wasn't agreed to, quote unquote, because it's not a binding approval in the policy. So in other words, REMCO made an ad hoc payment, or there was a discretionary exit payment, or there was a sign-on award, or out of cycle increase, or something like that. That's where we usually see these votes coming in.
It's very interesting to watch how it plays out. The debates around the correct level of remuneration for company leaders. It's been fascinating to watch it, and there still are all sorts of tensions around it. Do you get a sense of any change in the trends?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to say in terms of trends, because what we are seeing is there's a strain on I don't think it's news to anyone. Everybody is under financial strain, but we tend to sort of focus on employees are under financial strain, but we don't think about what does that mean for executives. And I think, working in these kinds of consulting roles, you really get your eyes are open to what are the other opportunities that are out there. So there's always that competition for talent. You're aware of, talent moving around within industries, moving outside of the country. And whilst you don't want to overstate those effects, it has an impact on pay. And everybody is starting to think about what is the real value of my pay in global terms. So I think that one must be careful. There's also a brilliant quote that if anyone is interested to go and look it up, Julia Hoggett of the London Stock Exchange made a statement about executive pay in 2023, which is just fascinating. And executive pay is linked to the functioning of our economy. You can't divorce the two. So you don't want to focus on dragging it down too much, but also, of course, it must remain a pay for performance model. So it's a complicated question.
Leila Ibrahimi, thanks very much indeed. Reward partner at PwC. 21 minutes after 6.
The Money Show. Explainer.
Bit of discussion in the last few days about how the world of the rich is changing, and that instead of those with wealth spending some of that money on goods like, fine wine, the faster jet than your mate, instead people are spending it on experiences, the most expensive hotel in Paris, or a seat at the world's best restaurant. Bronwyn Williams is trend translator and future finance specialist at Flux Trends. Bronwyn, good evening. Is this shift happening quite quickly? It does seem the wealthy are changing where and how and on what they spend some of their money.
Yes, well, yes and no. I think the wealthy have always spent their money on things that other people can't have, and as soon as those things become democratized and commoditized, and they shift their spending to something else. So it's like a constant pattern in history. But it's shifting again now because the dynamics of who's wealthy, where wealth is made, is obviously shifting at the same time, which adds extra complexity to the whole dynamic of change and the speed of changing patterns. I think one of the things to note is that there are more people wealthier today than there have been in the past. There's more of those. But there's also a bigger distinction between what you and I would consider wealthy and the really wealthiest people in the world. So you kind of got that sort of acceleration effect, or that sort of exponential curve is deepening, if you want to put it that way. And the really, really, really tip of the iceberg rich, the ones that even the wealthy can't imagine, are trying to put distance between themselves and the merely very well off.
So in a way, it's this sort of situation we've seen where there was a time when very few people could afford a particular handbag, or hardly anyone had their own plane. Now that all of those things have become a lot more common.
Yeah, they become commoditized. That's the thing. Progress gets democratized eventually, not all the way through, but trickle down economics does work to a certain extent, in that the middle and even the poorer classes do have access to at least, shall we say, imitations of what was previously only available to the rich, even in imagination.
Has something happened because, so you referred to how people had made their money, you would probably have had to be a mine owner or something 30 years ago. Now you could be someone who'd started a social media company, or Uber or someone, and that must inform what you then want to spend your money on. You're just a different type of person.
Yeah, it's a very different type of person, and there's a different set of things that are creating a new layer of status. I mean, I'm sure you're paying huge amounts of attention to the celebrity news this week that Tom Cruise has broken up with his latest girlfriend. But they were planning on getting married in space, because that's something that you and I can't do, even though you and I can go to Airbnb, even if it's just for one night, at the hotel that Tom would have taken one of his girlfriends to 10 years ago, right? So he's got to move faster to get away from us and all of our graspy little hands that are trying to get to the things that used to make him feel special.
Is social media a part of it? You have to be seen to be showing off. You have to be seen to be doing something that no one else can do.
Well, yes and no. Again, we can put the distinction between the really rich and the merely very well off. Really, really rich people don't care to be seen so much. They kind of can afford to be invisible. You don't have to show off if you passed a certain tier. You're on a sort of need to know little black book basis. You're not competing for attention among the social media reels with the commoners, right? So there's a distinction there too, I think.
There's a big exception to that, of course, because Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world, decided to take over Venice for his wedding. I mean, we knew already, Jeff. Don't worry.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's all the jokes that can go along with that. But there's also the distinctions in the whole conversation that we have, is that who we're actually talking about when we're talking about the wealthy. Are we talking about, those 3 or 4 people that own exponentially more than anyone else? Are we talking about the formerly wealthy, which I think the sort of the general conversation around this is speaking to the people who used to be seen, as you said, consuming things like private jets, or being seen in certain places, or wearing certain handbags, or buying certain bits of art, are now not being seen at all. They're using their money differently, because once those things that they once used to buy that no one else could have now become accessible, even things like, cross-continental flights. I mean, economy classes open this up for vast swaths of the world's population, and the distinction between, first class and economy class is not as vast as the airlines would have you believe. I mean, you're all in the same tin can on the sky. So you have to move to the private jet, and thereafter you have to go to the rocket. You have to keep on leveling up, because progress catches up and cheap knockoffs materialize for just about everything. I think another one of the points that a lot of the comments around this conversation around where's all the conspicuous consumption gone also relate to things like property values, which have been declining in formerly very fancy places. But again, property is very elitist, and you don't want to live in a place where your neighbors, who might have the same amount of money as you, but come from different backgrounds, are not deemed to have the same levels of taste, are seen to be staying, right? So as other people become economically, affluent, you want to move to put your distinction in, to put your place, your difference between yourself and everyone else, which is status game. It's not the nicest game if you play as human beings, but it is one of those games that many philosophers will come back to, whether you're talking about Verlaine and his Verlaine goods, or whether you're talking about René Girard and mimetic theory and all of this. It's always a bit uncomfortable to see it playing out in the real world. It's also uncomfortable for your listeners, who might be also slightly more affluent than their parents were, right? And how they feel and what you buy compared to what rich people bought in the 80s or 90s, right?
Bronwyn Williams, thanks very much indeed. Really appreciate it. Trend translator and future finance specialist at Flux Trends. 28 after 6.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Viv Govender's portfolio manager at Rand Swiss. Viv, good evening. Quite a big downswing on the JSE. Didn't seem to start with us, though.
Yes, but I would say you could rephrase it as quite a big downswing on the resource sector.
Yes.
As opposed to the JSE here. So, yeah, we did have a bit of a turnaround in the day. The resource sector by far led the day lower, and especially the gold stocks, after we started the day with a really, really strong, gold price here. I think you get a look at just the start of the day till the end. At one point, we were approaching 4,400, and we ended up significantly off those highs.
Yeah, I mean, gold seemed to sort of, I think maybe people just got a little bit nervous about where it was all going. Earnings season in the US, obviously people watching that very closely, and that's had a bit of an impact on US stocks today. They were lower last time I checked.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's also to do with the fact that, Trump is talking the Trump stuff again. And in fact, now it's positive at the moment. After he just again did a bit of a reversal on the Chinese, tariffs thing. I think that's one of the real big fears in the market. It's not the shutdown that's mattering that much. It's not many other things. But I think the one thing you can see right now that's really moving the market is any kind of fears around the China, trade war. And that, I think, is what's concerning them. Earnings season, I mean, the banks did really well. We also had, from like Europe and so on this week, we had the ASML, which is the chip machine manufacturing maker. So this is the guys that make the machines, but used by other companies to make the chips that, AI and so on uses. That company did really well. And then we also had, earlier this week, we also had LVMH, the luxury goods maker, do really well on the day because markets were expecting pretty bad numbers and they weren't quite as bad as they had feared. So I think, it's been a reasonably strong earnings season. But the thing that's been moving us, I think, is, a lot of everything today is much to do with what comes out of the orange man's mouth.
Viv Govender, isn't it always? Thanks so much, portfolio manager at Rand Swiss. Really appreciate the time on a Friday. Good evening. It's just gone 6:30. Don't forget guilt-free chocolate to come along with the Friday Biz Blitz. Firstly, Zingisa, good evening. The latest from Scopa and the Road Accident Fund.
Well, Stephen, it seems Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts says it will allow a witness who is prepared to testify in its inquiry into the Road Accident Fund to conceal their identity. The committee, which is currently probing maladministration at the fund, says it respects the fear many people have of blowing the whistle on wrongdoing. The decision comes amid correspondence from the fund's former CEO, Collins Letswalo, who says he won't respond to anonymous claims and testimony that's not backed up by a statement made under oath. Lindsay Datelinger has more.
This week, the committee heard from 3 former officials who claimed they were unfairly dismissed, another who has been on suspension for 15 months, and the current head of communications, Macintosh Polela, who described the Road Accident Fund as broken and dysfunctional. Today, committee chairperson Zongezo Zibi informed MPs a request had been received for a witness not to testify in person and neither for a face to be shown. While not a usual request to Parliament, most MPs were sympathetic, including the EFF's Ntombovuyo Mente, who suggested the testimony be received in camera.
We don't know how many people know her name in Parliament already. We don't know who to trust and who not to trust. This is South Africa where people disappear and nothing happens.
The UDM's Thandi Nontenja said the committee had to respect the request.
We have to protect the whistleblowers, otherwise we will have nothing in future.
CB says the identity of the witness will also be verified before testimony is delivered. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Residents living in Capri near Ocean View in Cape Town say they are relieved the fire which ripped through the area of the Table Mountain National Park has been largely contained. Firefighters battled strong southeasterly winds to prevent the wildfire from damaging properties in the Capri residential area. A spotter plane and a water bombing chopper have since been deployed to douse any flare-ups. 2 residents who live in Capri on the slope of Roodepoort Ridge spoke to EWN about their experience. Carlo Peterson has more.
Shantley Wolskett has been living in Capri with his grandmother for 13 years. He says he climbed onto the roof of their wooden house last night to prevent the fire from causing damage.
When I jumped on the roof, obviously the fire was just behind this ridge here and it was like rising a bit. So I just jumped on my house's roof so that I could water down the whole property. Well, not whole property, but most of the property.
Wolskett's neighbor, Julie Carlos, says the fire caused panic in her household.
We were so nervous, running around and panicking, and for our animals especially also. And then later the evening we got some more help, and this morning some more help from some firefighters.
Sandpark says fire crews will remain on standby while mop-up operations continue throughout the day today. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
Members of the Khoi and San indigenous communities say they are grateful to have their ancestors' remains back home. The partial remains of various indigenous communities, which were previously kept in the Hunterian Museum in Glasgow, Scotland, were repatriated last night. Some are originally from the Northern Cape and have been claimed by descendants of the San, Nama, Griqua and Korana populations. The additional remains originate from the Western Cape and are of Khoisan origin. Khoisan activist Bradley van Sitters says the homecoming was a bittersweet moment.
Today was a very special day. Today our people that were taken away in slavery during the colonial times were brought back. It was bittersweet. On one side bitter because the people have come in coffins, but sweet on the other side because it's a family that came together.
And the UK's regulator for communications services, Ofcom, has found the BBC's Gaza documentary breached the broadcasting code. According to Ofcom, the public broadcaster failed to disclose that a 13-year-old boy narrating the program was the son of a deputy agriculture minister in the Hamas government. The investigation follows 20 complaints and found that the audience was deprived of critical information which could have been highly relevant to their assessment of the narrator and the information provided. It says not mentioning this fact was mentally misleading. And a cloudy Saturday is in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Lows of between 12 and 14 degrees and highs of between 18 and 23. Cape Town is cloudy, becoming partly cloudy at a low of 15 and a high of 21. The top story on EWN, Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts says it will allow a witness who is prepared to testify in its inquiry into the Road Accident Fund to conceal their identity.
EWN Traffic.
Pimville, Soweto, we still have slow-moving traffic. This is on Chris Hani Road between UJ Campus and Klipspruit Valley. Protea Lane. Also slow-moving traffic on the R559, that's opposite GOG Gardens. If you're traveling through Rudaport heading towards Kagiso, expect some delays on Randfontein Road. This is between Adcock and Milestalker. There's also slow-moving traffic. This is in the Mother City on the elevated freeway heading into the Cape Town CBD. There's slow-moving traffic on Nelson Mandela Boulevard. That's approaching Rondo Bloom Road. Also, bumper-to-bumper traffic still on the N1 outbound approaching Brackenfell. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Calling all wedding planners and venues, restaurants, conference centers, and hotels. Do you need tables and chairs? Home in One has it all. Do you need cutlery, crockery, table linen, and restaurant equipment? Home in One has it all. Do you need tents, gazebos, or umbrellas? Home in One has it all. Affordable prices, the latest trends, with 2 branches in Pretoria and Johannesburg. Shop online at homein1.co.za because we're your number one choice. Home in One has it all.
In a world shaped by those who build, disrupt, and reimagine, there comes a gathering not just of minds, but of futures. The South African Future Trust Summit, in partnership with Standard Bank, is where top entrepreneurs, innovators, and change makers converge. It's where the future of enterprise is redefined. On 5 and 6 November, you could be there. Stand a chance to win tickets to the South African Future Trust Summit on 702. WhatsApp the keyword SAFT with your name and ID number, telling us how you would benefit from attending the summit to 072 702 1702. Then catch 702 Drive with John Perlman to find out if you're a winner. The South African Future Trust Summit, in partnership with Standard Bank. Your summit, your way, on 702. TCs and more on primemediaplus.com.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
Well, we've been talking about salaries and remuneration. Always got to get that right. Talking as well, of course, about the flight disruptions that we've seen. Voice notes coming through on pay on 072 702 1702.
Kevin from Rodiport. Talking about CEOs' remuneration. I think it's a ripple effect. The CEOs here, they see that a municipality manager or mayor of some place in Rustenburg or in Pietermaritzburg, they're earning crazy amounts. So it's just a ripple effect that goes on. So CEOs in this country, in SA, are paid more than in Finland, more than in Europe, more than even in the US. So it's just a ripple effect of what happens in SA. Yes, that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I do think that there is a sort of ripple effect of, this one gets this much. I know from time to time you'll see lists of who in government gets the highest salary, and it's often not what you would expect. I know, for example, I think Colin Sletswalo, who was until recently the CEO of the Road Accident Fund, got quite a high salary. Plus, of course, the sort of private security guards, it seems that the board had declined. That inquiry still underway in Parliament. There's another thing about remuneration that I've never really understood, which is that when someone messes up and the board needs to get rid of them, they'll always pay them to go. And I've always thought that's one of the strongest arguments that the system is not as effective as it should be, is that people who are bad bosses still get paid a large amount of money. There's no kind of sort of punishment. And then you get the stunts, which actually work often. Someone will come back to take over a business or whatever, usually someone who's sort of made their money already, and say, I'll do this for free, or I'll do it for R1 or $1 or whatever it is. And that, I do think, does immediately earn some respect, which is very interesting. 011 883 0702 021 446 0567. Don't forget the Friday Biz Blitz in a few moments.
EWN Sport.
Tolakele, good evening. The Women's World Cup. No, Danny Jordan here.
Well, Stephen, Sri Lanka women posted 105 for 7 in their 20 overs of their rain-reduced World Cup clash. That's against South Africa. Vishma Kotantari top scored with 34, while Nonkululeko Mlaba took 3 for 30. In response, the Proteas women are currently 25 without any loss in the fourth over. They need 96 runs in 96 balls for victory. At the crease is captain Lara Waldvat on 17 alongside Tasman Brits on 7. For Manchester United, they'll travel to old rivals Liverpool at Anfield on Sunday in the 100th meeting between the pair. The Reds come into the game on the back of a 3-game losing run, while United have yet to impress this season. Ruben Amorim says despite that criticism, his side can beat anyone.
When you play in big clubs, you need to win every match, especially when people are expecting you to win. We have some difficulties sometimes to deal with that. When people and you guys expect not Manchester United to win that game, maybe it's easier for the players to perform, and we need to change that. But to change that, we need to have confidence to win more games, to have more points, to feel more free to play the game.
Arsenal will look to stretch their lead at the top when they take on Fulham in a London derby tomorrow. Mikel Arteta says despite their bright start, it's too early to talk about challenging for the title.
Prefer to win every game, and the only thing that we can do is to perform really well on Saturday and win the game. As you said, it's super early. It's not the moment to start looking at that. It's much more the moment now to look at performances, to look at ways that we can sustain certain things that we're doing and improve others, and that's the only way. And that increase the chances to win in matches when it comes to March and April to be in the best possible position.
Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie has run the risk of interfering politically in football matters after writing a letter to FIFA offering an apology on SAFA's administration mishap. That comes after Bafana were docked 3 points during 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifying for fielding an ineligible Teboho Mokoena during the game against Lesotho. McKenzie adds that he's written to the association itself asking for a detailed report outlining the circumstances that led to the error. And Rassie Erasmus insists that the Rugby Championship is still a priority for SANZAR teams, despite the confirmation of the Greatest Rivalry Tour, which will take place every 4 years. The inaugural edition will see New Zealand playing 7 matches in South Africa next year, while a 4th test against the double world champions will be played at a neutral venue overseas.
I would hate it if I'm part of it. If Argentina will just be thrown away or Australia just been thrown away, I would personally not like it. Not that I have a say. That will be the sad part. But the good part will be that we're playing against a team that's been ruling world rugby for the last 20 years. It's only the last 4 or 5 years that we managed to catch up with them. So rugby-wise, I can't see many negatives.
Tolakele Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
Every day I'm hustling. It's our reality as business owners. And it's good to know that there's someone out there who takes care of the business that makes the business. Gotta love My Way Business Insurance. Saving big on premiums with 24/7 emergency services, plus My Business Assist with marketing, legal and labor advice services.
Visit myway.co.za or dial 0860 64 64 64 and get a quote today. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's, C's and standard rates apply. My Way. Live your way.
Mzansi, Powerball has reached a staggering 150 million rand guaranteed jackpot this Friday. Only 3 times in history has Powerball reached such jaw-breaking levels. Be in it to win it by playing Powerball for the guaranteed 150 million rand jackpot today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old and play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m. catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669. 702 with Stephen Grootes.
Email him on stephen@702.co.za.
An interesting comment by the Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago. He's been in the States talking about matters of central banking and suggesting that there might or that there should be a way for countries to challenge the methodology of credit ratings agencies. Essentially, I think he's being quite careful with his words, I think correctly so, not suggesting that South Africa, for example, would be able to challenge its credit rating, but being able to say to a credit ratings agency, we are not so sure about the methodology. It's very interesting because on one level, this is not a process that should be democratic, right? Credit ratings agencies need to be done properly. You need to know exactly where you are. It needs to all be correct. Otherwise, people are going to lose a huge amount of money. At the same time, though, I do think sometimes, I think we're allowed to say, well, sometimes these credit ratings or the methodology that is used don't make sense. And the perfect example, of course, is what happened during the start of the global financial crisis, 2007, 2008. So many American companies had sort of wonderful ratings, and so many of the institutions failed, and the credit ratings agencies failed then too. If only, and I'm sure you've seen The Big Short or read the book or whatever, if only they sort of had their eyes open, that would have made a big difference. And so that would have saved a lot of people a huge amount of money. So I do think that he's on to something. I know there's also been talk in the past, and I don't know how far this got, of a kind of BRICS ratings agency. The idea would be an institution that would be within the BRICS countries or the expanded BRICS countries, or perhaps one in Africa. I wouldn't be surprised if someone maybe uses another phrase and says sort of the global north, if you know what I mean. Maybe something like the global south, maybe something like that. But then you're still stuck in the same thing. So if you have a set of ratings agencies that come with certain values and end up with certain methodologies and end up coming to certain decisions, and you then have other ratings agencies, for them to have any credibility whatsoever, they're going to have to adopt certain criteria. And in the end, they're going to end up, if they want to be successful, if they want to be taken seriously, doing exactly what the first set did. If you both want to be taken seriously, there aren't too many ways you can assess it. There's often a nuance, but there isn't often a fundamental difference in how you assess risk. In the end, that's why if you find that a bank is happy to give you a loan, other banks will give you a loan. And if you find a bank is unlikely to give you a loan, well, it would seem that other banks are also unlikely to give you a loan. I don't want to stop you from shopping around. I think you absolutely must. But in the end, the difference is a nuance rather than a fundamental yes, no. And the same must hold true, I would think, for credit ratings agencies. I mean, it must be the case that in the end, you're going to end up with the same kind of dynamic. And I think that might be very interesting. What I would like to see is how seriously Lesetja Kganyago's decision is taken by the kind of main international credit ratings agencies at the moment. So I have a suspicion that there'll just be a kind of no, shan't, won't change it. And in the end, what you're probably going to have to do is point to the big problems that they had during the global financial crisis and elsewhere, and sort of start there. You know, I think that's where you're going to have to poke them a little bit. The other thing, of course, is to just say, well, how credible is your system really if it is not open to proper examination? How credible is it really if you're not actually willing to really discuss this issue? And that surely then would lead you down a path where you might be able to get some change. It would help, of course, if there's kind of united action, and I can kind of sense, can almost smell how someone somewhere is going to bring this up during the G20, would surely be the appropriate forum. The other thing, of course, is that any change is not going to happen quickly when it comes to credit ratings agencies. So instead, what you would have to do is start it now while we have the agenda, while we have the ability to set some of the agenda of the G20, and then keep going from there, is essentially just sort of, start to push some more, start to keep pushing at the next G20, and do it like that. I think that really might be the best way to do it. You will know, I'm sure as well as I do, that trying to change global financial architecture is not an easy thing to do. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. And to do it, you need to make sure that you have allies, that you have people with you. I don't think we'll have a problem there. You also need to be able to keep your shoulder to the wheel. You need to keep going. In other words, you need to keep sort of pushing. And then you need allies. And I think that really is the issue. You need to build a sort of groundswell. There are ways to do it. Good political actors, good politicians, good political communicators do this all the time. You build a kind of groundswell. And I think the case would simply be, we think there's a problem with the credit ratings agencies. Look at where they failed. Have they convinced us that they've changed since then? I think we still need some change. This is what we need. And then the other option, your kind of nuclear option, is to build your own credit ratings agency that does take into account the challenges or the differences or the nuances and make them open and just show that they can be credible. Now that you're probably looking at a 20-year deal. That would take a long time to build up. But that would be the other option, is you'd simply do it in that way over time. You build that momentum. And what that institution would then do is would be a kind of reference point. It would show the other credit ratings agencies that actually this can be done, that your credit ratings agency has become a lot more credible than the others, and that would then show that actually, through simple good old-fashioned shame, that the other ones need to change too. And that may be more subtle, more effective, more long-term policy, but it will have to take a long time. You won't be able to do it quickly. I suppose the upshot, if you look at what Lesetja Kganyago, the governor, is saying, is that there does need to be some change. The question is, how do we do it? How long will it take? And then also look at the lost opportunity in the meantime if we don't change it. I mean, what happens if, and everyone's talking about this or that, worried about the sort of froth in AR markets as we were discussing last night? What happens if credit ratings agencies fail again? Well, then no one will trust them. And I think that will be a major problem.
Stephen Grootes.
Taking your calls
on 011-883-0702.
Time for the Friday Biz Blitz on The Money Show this Friday evening. You know how it works. You call us. If you get the answer right, we move on to the next question. If you get it wrong, we move on to the next caller. 011-883-0702 and 021-446-0567. First question tonight on the Friday Biz Blitz. Which African mobile operator has become the first to have 300 million customers? Which African mobile operator has become the first to have 300 million customers? It's a great question. There's a little piece of history here as well. But which African mobile operator became the first to surpass 300 million customers? 011-883-0702 and 021-446-0567.
Brush, stroke, paint, color, protect, and admire. From roof paint to exterior textures and interior silk, Warrior Paints has it all. The product range and stylish colors are amazing. And what's more, Warrior Paints has crushed prices for incredible savings. Enjoy that good old-fashioned personal service you deserve. For price, quality, variety, and service, Warrior Paints is streets ahead. Warrior Paints. Affordable, lasting luxury.
I think the family needs a break. We've always wanted a holiday home. Maybe we should see what's out there. Imagine waking up to an ocean view in a beautiful villa.
With a big braai area and a spare room for when family visits. If it's on your mind, it's on ours. Partner with a wealth banker will connect you to a home loan with up to prime minus 1.5%. See money differently. Nedbank Private Wealth. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The future of mobility is here, and it's powered by clean energy. Join business leaders, policymakers, and innovators at the NEV Summit 2025, taking place on 22 and 23 October. Together, we're driving Africa's green industrial revolution, building new industries, creating jobs, and positioning Gauteng as the hub of sustainable mobility. Visit evsummit2025.co.za to learn more. The NEV Summit 2025, driving Gauteng towards a green automotive economy.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, proud sponsor of the Absa Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
The Money Show, Friday Biz Blitz.
First question on the Friday Biz Blitz this evening. Which African mobile operator has become the first to have more than 300 million customers? 011 883 0702 021 446 0567. Let's start with Teresa in Paulshof. Teresa, hi.
Hi, Stephen. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Do you know the answer?
It's MTN.
It's MTN, she says. Teresa, of course it's MTN. They became the first African mobile operator to have 300 million customers. They were founded in 1994. I mean, I remember when I first got a cell phone, it was a very big thing. Do you remember your first cell phone, Teresa?
Yes, I was a late adopter, but it was with MTN, yes.
Okay. Second question. Here we go on the Friday Biz Blitz this Friday evening. Snowflake, Iwisa, and Super Sun are made by which JSE-listed company that wants to buy the Rhodes Fruit Group, RFG Holdings, which makes Bull Brand, Mama's Pies, and Heinz? So, Snowflake, Iwisa, and Super Sun are made by which JSE-listed company that wants to buy RFG Holdings, the makers of Bull Brand, Mama's Pies, and Heinz?
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Come on. It's a massive group, Teresa.
Premier.
Sorry?
Premier.
Is it Premier? Do you know, Teresa? It is Premier. So the Premier Group wants to buy RFG Holdings through a share swap deal. RFG shareholders will get a 22.5% stake. There'll be a 7-for-1 share deal, essentially. And of course, that does mean that the deal is valued at a 35.6% premium on RFG's latest closing price. Okay, here we go. We've only got 3 minutes, Teresa. Marek Masuyada is the CEO of which retail company that unbundled from Pick and Pay? He was on the Money Show this week. Marek Masuyada is the CEO of which retail company that unbundled from Pick and Pay?
Oh, my word.
Oh, Teresa.
Give me a idea.
Come on, Teresa. I'm going to have to count you down.
What does it make?
Oh, Teresa. 3, 2,
Oh.
1. Sorry, Teresa. Have a nice weekend. Matsabane in Mpumalanga. Matsabane, good evening. Marek Masuyada, the CEO of which retail company that unbundled from Pick and Pay?
It's ShopRite.
Oh, it's not ShopRite, Matsabane. I'm sorry. Mohammed in Swane. Mohammed, hi. Marek Masuyada, CEO of which company?
Boxer.
It is Boxer, yes. Mohammed, congratulations. So Boxer's half-year headline earnings per share fell by more than 30%, impacted by certain costs. Okay, next question, Mohammed. Here we go. Which civil rights icon did OpenAI's Sora stop generating videos of after a public backlash? So OpenAI's Sora generates AI videos. There's a civil rights icon that people were using, and there was a huge backlash to it. So who did they remove? Who did they say you can't do this to?
Sure. Oh, you got me, eh?
You sure you don't want to take a guess, Mohammed?
Yeah. Can you guess it for me?
I can't guess it for you, no. Mohammed, it's the Money Show, not for free show. Sorry, Mohammed.
Thank you.
011 883 0702 021 446 0567. I will give you a clue, is that the person we're talking about, the civil rights icon, did have a dream. I mean, that should be pretty obvious. I think you should get it after that. He had a dream. 011 883 0702 021 446 0567. Which civil rights icon did OpenAI's Sora stop generating videos of after there was a big backlash? And he had a dream. I'm not going to do it in the way, but I think you must surely be able to work out who the person is. It'd be very sad to end the quiz here. I mean, we might have no choice but to end the quiz at this point. But I did think to myself it was quite a tricky question if you hadn't been following things. But I have been giving you a very nice clue, I thought. Which civil rights icon did OpenAI's Sora stop generating videos after that public backlash? Okay, I think we might just squeeze in an answer here on 011 883 0702 and 021 446 0567. Jeff in Plumstead. Jeff, hi.
I have a dream. Yeah, it's Martin Luther King.
Of course it's Martin Luther King. Jeff, thanks very much.
The greatest.
Okay, indeed, yes. All right. Okay, Jeff, thank you very much indeed. Jeff from Plumstead is the winner of the Friday Biz Blitz.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Zingisa Cherwa. Minister Senzo Mchunu has told Parliament that it was his idea to get his Chief of Staff, Cedric Nkabinde, to record his conversations with KZN Provincial Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Mchunu says this was after Mkhwanazi addressed Nkabinde in a threatening manner and also made threats against Mchunu. The ad hoc committee investigating corruption today heard an audio recording of a conversation allegedly between Mkhwanazi and Nkabinde discussing issues related to the disbanding of the task team. Evidence leader Norman Arendse asked Mkhwanazi why Nkabinde secretly recorded Mkhwanazi without consent.
Is there a legal reason that you as a minister and your chief of staff can record conversations with people under the Cyber Act or some legislation?
Mchunu said it was a precaution and had nothing to do with the ad hoc committee or Madlanga Commission.
It's me who advised the chief of staff to say, you may need to record your conversations with General Mkhwanazi because of the threats. It was not because for the commission, I wasn't thinking about the commission or any other thing, because he kept on saying, General Mkhwanazi is angry.
Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts says it will allow a witness who is prepared to testify in its inquiry into the Road Accident Fund to conceal their identity. The committee, which is currently probing maladministration at the fund, says it respects the fear many people have of blowing the whistle on wrongdoing. The decision comes amid correspondence from the fund's former CEO, Collins Letswalo, who says he won't respond to anonymous claims and testimony that's not backed up by a statement made under oath. Lindsay Datelinger has more.
This week, the committee heard from 3 former officials who claimed they were unfairly dismissed, another who has been on suspension for 15 months, and the current head of communications, Macintosh Polela, who described the Road Accident Fund as broken and dysfunctional. Today, committee chairperson Zongezo Zibi informed MPs a request had been received for a witness not to testify in person and neither for a face to be shown. While not a usual request to Parliament, most MPs were sympathetic, including the EFF's Ntombovuyo Mente, who suggested the testimony be received in camera.
We don't know how many people know her name in Parliament already. We don't know who to trust and who not to trust. This is South Africa where people disappear and nothing happens.
The UDM's Thandi Nontenja said the committee had to respect the request.
We have to protect the whistleblowers, otherwise we will have nothing in future.
CB says the identity of the witness will also be verified before testimony is delivered. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Members of the Khoi and San indigenous communities say they are grateful to have their ancestors' remains back home. The partial remains of various indigenous communities, which were previously being kept in the Hunterian Museum in Glasgow, Scotland, were repatriated last night. Some are originally from the Northern Cape and have been claimed by descendants of the San, Nama, Griqua and Korana populations. The additional remains originate from the Western Cape and are of Khoisan origin. Khoisan activist Bradley van Sitters says the homecoming was bittersweet.
Today was a very special day. Today our people that were taken away in slavery during the colonial times were brought back. It was bittersweet. On one side bitter because the people have come in coffins, but sweet on the other side because it's a family that came together.
And the UK's regulator for communication services, Ofcom, has found the BBC's Gaza documentary breached the broadcasting code. According to Ofcom, the public broadcaster failed to disclose that a 13-year-old boy narrating the program was the son of a deputy agriculture minister in the Hamas government. The investigation follows 20 complaints and found that the audience was deprived of critical information which could have been highly relevant to their assessment of the narrator and the information provided. It says not mentioning this fact was mentally misleading. In your financials, gold is trading at $4,214.76 an ounce. The rand is 17.38 to the dollar, 23.33 to the pound, and 20.29 to the euro. Brent crude oil is $61 a barrel.
In Protea Glen, we still have bumper-to-bumper traffic. This is on the N12 westbound between the R554 Abu Bakr Drive and the R558. Also traveling through Rudaport, heading towards Kagiso. Slow-moving traffic on Randfontein Road between Adcock and Corlett Avenue in the Mother City. Expect some delays. This is on the N1 outbound approaching Brackenfell.
A cloudy Saturday is in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Johannesburg dropping to overnight lows of 12 degrees, peaking at 20. Pretoria 14 and 23. Vereeniging 14 and 18 degrees. Cape Town is cloudy, becoming partly cloudy with a gentle south-southeasterly breeze at a low of 15 and a high of 21. The top story on EWN this hour. Minister Stephen Grootes has told Parliament that it was his idea to get his Chief of Staff, Cedric Ngabinde, to record his conversations with KZN Provincial Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
702.
You're listening to the best of The Money Show.
The Money Show.
Welcome to the best bits of The Money Show.